welcome everyone to Authors on the Air. I'm your host, Pam Stack. With me is, I know, one of your favorite writers and certainly one of my friends and favorite writers, Russell Blake. Hi, Russell. Welcome back.
Hey, Pam. Pleasure to be there.
Thank you. Thank you. You know, I think everybody knows you from writing all your fast action fiction books, Jet and Dan and all the rest of those books. And I don't know that most people realize you have written some nonfiction. You wrote a book about dogs, and you wrote a kind of a funny book about writing. And now you have a new book out called Expat Secrets of Mexico. I'm going to try to show it. I don't know if it shows up very well on my screen. Probably not. There it is.
Yeah, there it is.
I have the ebook. Tell me why you wrote this book. I know you love being in Mexico, but you also have been a world traveler, and you decided to make Mexico your home. Why did you do that, and why did you write the book?
Well, it was a labor of love because I had started writing just impressions as I traveled around Mexico. I moved here, almost 18 years ago now. So I've spent a lot of my life outside of the United States. In fact, if you count the time that I lived in Europe, probably almost a third of my life now has been spent outside of the U.S. So when I decided to move to Mexico, I'd sold my company. I had a medical company, and I sold it at a fairly young age. And I was looking at places that I would have a better quality of life than in the United States. Right. And there were two places that really called to me that I'd visited a lot. The first was Melbourne, Australia. And I loved Australia because it's the world capital of eating and drinking. The wine is amazing. And the people are very, very nice. But it's a long schlep. It's like 14 hours from California.
Right.
You know, if the headwinds are cooperating.
In your favor, right.
Yeah, which is both probably a positive and a negative depending on how you feel about your family and friends. But the other place I was really familiar with was Cabo San Lucas because I lived in Southern California, and Cabo is really for Southern California like a long weekend destination. You know, you'd hop on a plane and Friday morning or Friday afternoon, and you'd be in Cabo in 2 hours. So it's kind of like San Diego South in a way. So it was very familiar. It wasn't real Mexico, and I'd been there probably 50 times by the time I decided to give it, hey, let's try this for 6 months, see how it goes, and if I like it, yay. If not, it's not like I can't just pack my bags and go someplace else.
Right.
So I moved to Cabo on a trial basis and wound up there for 12 years.
I think one time when we were speaking, it was when the hurricane hit.
With Hugh Howey.
For those of you who don't know, Russell and I have known each other for a long time. Not only has he been one of my favorite guests, he's been on multiple times, but he's also hosted the show once with Hugh Howey, and probably one of the best interviews I ever had with James Lee Burke. So I'm familiar with where Russell goes just because we keep in touch with each other. So you were on Cabo when the hurricane hit, hanging on by a thread.
Odile.
Yeah.
In fact, I was on the air as the first band started to come in.
It's just crazy. And being the trooper you are, you stayed and finished the show.
And we lost power about 45 minutes later, and it didn't come back on for 3.5 weeks.
Your house was pretty badly damaged then, right?
No, actually, it's a big hurricane like that is unusual because I've been through a bunch of, category 1s, category 2s, and they weren't, there was wind and rain, but I had hurricane protection up on all my windows, so I'm prepared for it. But nothing really prepares you for a category 5 with 3 tornadoes in it. Yeah. It's basically 175 mile per hour sustained winds for 3 hours each, and then the eye passes over and then you get it again from the opposite side.
You get the dirty side after it passes the first time.
Yeah, and when you can use numbers, but the way I like to explain it to people that have never been through one is imagine sitting on the wing of a jet on takeoff. And imagine that for 3 hours.
Yeah. Where I live, we just went through Hurricane Ian, and of
Yeah.
course, when I was in Miami, went through Hurricane Andrew, so I am familiar with hurricanes. When you lived in Cabo, was that one of your reasons for moving?
Well,
Um,
no, there were a couple of reasons. One was after that, yeah, I was like, I never want to go through this again. I mean, yes, I'm completely prepared. I have a generator. I have,
right,
all the protection. My house is well built because I built it, so
right.
I was confident in the construction. But the place next door to me sustained about $500,000 worth of damage. So
Wow.
it's just, some of it's luck of the draw, some of it's
It
construction
is.
integrity.
Sure.
But yeah, and I was kind of like, you know what? I'm not sure I ever. This is a supposedly fun thing I will never do again, to quote, a
Yeah.
favorite author of mine. So I was started looking for other places that on mainland that were more inland and that had better weather because frankly, Cabo can get brutally hot in the summer, and
Is that what
these
led you to keeping notes about all the places you visited, looking for a new
yeah.
place to live for yourself?
That and also, I was just, Mexico is a huge country. I mean, most people
Yes.
don't realize that. It's about, 115 million people. It's the 11th largest economy in the world. Like, most people think of it as a really poor country. And yeah, 70% of the population lives in abject poverty and it's terrible. But it's not because there's not enough money. It's because the money is concentrated in the hands, and this might sound familiar to people in the United States. Most of the money is concentrated in the hands of a very few people, of elites.
The elites. And so you said the northern part of Mexico is the most unsafe part. Is that true?
Yeah, yeah, because look at the border. I mean, the largest market for illegal drugs in the world is the United States. So
Right.
obviously, any place that you could traffic the drugs across the border is going to be a highly contested area between warring factions. So if you have a country where people, the average person, I want to say, makes $350 a month.
Wow.
So if you have a country like that and you have a product that has 1,000% margin, yeah, you're gonna have people willing to kill each other over that.
Right.
So you
That
kind of
makes
my
sense.
yeah, my advice is stay away from within, I like to say maybe a couple of 100 miles of the border because you're walking into a pseudo war zone. I mean,
Right. Well,
TJ.
that makes sense. Yeah.
Hmm,
So, what I found really interesting in your book is that not only do you give the locations you think are most palatable and enjoyable and comfortable, you also talk about visas and taxes and sales tax and licenses and whether you want to rent or whether you want to own. It's a very detailed um, book, right down to the fact that it's not worth it to ship your furniture in your car. Even
no,
though finding a good car a little used car might be difficult. Um, but you settled on some places that you were a favorite, and Guadalajara was one of them, and Colima was one of them. And I have to tell you, I'm very fascinated by Colima. So describe that city for me, please.
well, Colima is, I want to say the total population of the metro and surrounding areas is maybe 350,000.
Wow.
And it's about, I don't know, about a 30-mile drive to the beach. So it's up in the hills. It's up in the foothills. I want to say it's around 1,800 to 2,500 feet of elevation. Um, and it's small enough to where you have the small town, nobody drives fast, there really isn't much traffic. Everybody kind of knows each other after living there for a few years. So you have that sense of community that you really don't get in large cities unless it's like in, little enclaves. Like
Yes.
in New York, everybody knows each other within a 6-block radius.
Maybe.
But yeah,
Maybe.
maybe if
Yeah.
they walk, because they walk everywhere and they see each other and they're
Right.
all in, show business or whatever it
Sure.
is that they do, Wall
Right.
Street.
Right.
But Colima is just the perfect size for me because it has all the amenities and all of the modern conveniences that I want. But
Describe
it
some of those things. What are
Well, high
some of
speed
the
internet,
okay?
high-speed internet, good hospitals. I'm a foodie, so great restaurants is a big deal.
Excuse me,
Microbreweries
for
are
those of you
nice.
who don't know, Russell also is a restaurateur, so and a wine connoisseur and a tequila connoisseur, and not the rut gut kind. I want to tell you,
That's a
but
nice way to say a fat drunk, but okay.
not fat at all, my friend.
Mm.
But
Yeah, I
you,
got that filter that pulls.
so the food is good there. Is it
Food's great.
is it expensive to eat there?
Nah, it's dirt cheap. In fact, friends of mine that come down, I used to get that all the time from my American Canadian friends, which is, oh, you're so brave to have left the US. It's just, I could never do it. And I'm kind of like, if I missed something in the last 18 years, because I
Right,
don't feel like it.
right.
And I eat extremely well. And, I obviously probably drink too much. And I have, I'm building a house right now that's, I want to say, 6,000 square feet, that's a contemporary, like a Bauhaus, minimalist, modern place on a golf course, like on the
Wow,
fairway.
wow.
Um, and the cost of living here is probably between 20 and 25% of what it would be in any decent area of the United States.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like beer's a buck and a quarter in a bar, like between a buck and a buck and a quarter. And that's my beer index. I just look at, what does it cost? What does it cost to have a really nice breakfast with coffee and tip and everything? And the answer is about $4 per person,
Wow.
in a nice place. So dinner for two people, including a bottle of wine at a steak restaurant with a more than 1 pound steak cooked perfectly, with dessert might come to $28 per person. And
Wow.
that's, white gloves and,
Sure.
tablecloth. So it's kind of about the same pricing as the US was in maybe 1980.
Yeah. Yeah. Russell, what is the most expensive thing about Colima?
Well, probably where I live, because I mean it's got a homeowners association, and it's an 18-hole golf course. I don't play golf,
I
but
don't
I
mean
just
the
live.
cost of housing. I'm saying, is it expensive for gasoline? Is it expensive
Nah,
for internet, for cell
no.
phone?
I think we pay $25 a month for internet,
Wow.
for fiber, internet. I want to say water winds up costing $15 a month, and you can drink the water, and certainly in our community because it comes out of 3 wells, so there's no contamination.
Right.
Um, Gas, propane for your stove maybe comes to $10 or $15 a month. I'd say probably the most expensive thing is probably healthcare, but I need to put that in perspective. A friend of mine had to go to the emergency room about a month ago, and he was seen within 2 minutes, and the visit cost $35.
Wow.
So yeah,
Wow.
yeah, it's so that's the most expensive thing about
Now,
living here.
do you have a health insurance system there in Mexico?
Yes, there is. There's both private and public, but I don't bother. I just self-insure. In other words, I just put money away every year.
Sure.
Because I'll give you another example. A client of mine who I built a house for here on the golf course just had to have gallbladder surgery, and that was 2 or 3 days in the hospital. Obviously, the surgery, the anesthesiologist, the private room, et cetera, et cetera, and it cost him 2 grand at a private, the best private hospital in Colima.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So the point is, insurance, at least as performed in the United States. Excuse me for a second. As performed in the United States is really a way of augmenting big pharma and big health.
Sure.
So it's a good rule of thumb is that any procedure in Mexico at a first class hospital, oftentimes with American trained physicians, because the sort of children of the elite that become physicians here will go and spend a couple of years at Harvard Medical School, to finish up their education. So
Sure.
it will cost between 5 and 10 times less than the same procedure in the United States.
Um, so for Americans or anybody else for that matter, looking to go and find rental property or retire in Mexico, your number one place is Colima, whereas another place you
Well,
like
yeah,
about.
Colima, I'll give you an example. Building the house, I'm right now, I'm in a 3-bedroom home in a gated community, 2-story home, and I pay $450 a month. Right? So, I mean, it's just it's like, are you kidding me? But another good place, I really love Zapopan, which is a northern suburb of Guadalajara. It's sort of a, gentrified, very wealthy area of, but when I say wealthy, it's like Beverly Hills wealthy. Like you see Lamborghinis and Rolls Royces and
Sure.
all of that. But even that is probably 60% cheaper than the United States.
Is there a large expat community in Mexico? And do you
Oh, it's
know
huge,
many?
but it depends on where.
Ah,
Now, for me, I don't really, I don't really enjoy the company of large numbers of Americans or Canadians. I try to immerse myself more in the local culture. But by the same token, I'm probably somewhat elitist because, I don't want to live in a hovel with chickens running around and dirt roads and stuff. So
of course.
somewhere between super rustic and I want to have a nice meal and I want a competent physician and a good, emergency room
Sure.
and, nice streets, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Somewhere between, that's what I look for. And I try to explain that in the book. If you're looking for how to live in Mexico for $1,000 a month, this isn't the book. I mean, you can do it, but it's just not my thing. So
Right.
I'm looking more at how can a couple, once you own a home, how could you have a really nice life for maybe 25 to 30 grand as a couple?
Right.
And it's very doable in all of the areas I talked about. Zapopan, maybe a little harder because it's a wealthier community. So naturally prices, are higher because it's very
Sure.
desirable. Um, but there's a ton of really nice places in Mexico. I mean, again, it's a huge. What do you want? Do you want heat and humidity in the Caribbean Sea? Great. There's a whole thing over on the Caribbean side.
Yes,
Do
there
you
is.
want, mountains? Do you want perfect springtime weather all year long? Great. There's a whole bunch of places like that. Do you
Right.
want Puerto Vallarta and the Pacific coast and that whole, kind of endless summer vibe? Got a bunch of those. And do you like Baja? Do you like the cantina town, endless partying, et cetera, et cetera? And, once you get out of Cabo in that area, the very tranquil sort of, you won't see anyone for an hour on the beach.
Right.
It's got that. It's just, so for me, it's just, it had enough areas in relatively close proximity that I could get anything I wanted. I could have like Colima has a lot of outdoor cafes and sidewalk restaurants, which I really like. I like that about Argentina too. You can go and sit and have a cup of coffee for an hour and a half and watch the world go by, and
Uh-huh.
it's very verdant. There's trees everywhere, so it's I like that. But if I want to go stay at the Hyatt Andares in a 5-star hotel and eat at, just world class and renowned gourmet restaurants, I can drive to Guadalajara in 2 hours and I can do that for 3 days. So
Yeah.
to me, it had the perfect combination of, beach, because again, the shore is 30 miles away, and big city. Guadalajara is the second largest city in Mexico. Its population 7 million. So it's got everything you would
Very
expect of
modern
a
too, isn't it?
modern, large city.
Very modern.
Super, it depends on where, but yeah, super modern. I mean, super modern. Like I posted pictures on my Facebook and, it's 35-story glass towers. I mean, it looks like Hong Kong or, Panama or
Yeah,
something.
I don't think people
Singapore.
anticipate that. They are expecting something more along more cantina like you said earlier. But
Yeah,
interesting.
cactus, burros, guys in sombreros. Yeah, I get it. And there is that. There's lots of that.
Sure, if
But
that's what you're
I mean, you
looking
can
for.
drive to the town of, yeah, if you want that, you can go to the town of Tequila, where tequila comes from, and it's a 40-minute drive from Guadalajara. So, yeah, and it's very colonial. It's got the square with a 400-year-old church, and all everything's painted orange and red, and it's got the very colonial experience. So you can. That's San Miguel de Allende, by the way, that picture there, which is
Yep.
another popular
Yes, it
destination.
is. I
So,
actually have
so
a
there,
I have a
it's just got
painting
a lot of.
from when I was there, so I have it in my other room. As a matter of fact, almost
It probably hasn't changed, except there's a much larger expat group
right,
now.
right. This is
Huge
Russell
expat.
Blake, my friend and best-selling author. You know him for the Jet series and for the Day After Never series and endless other books. This new nonfiction work is Expat Secrets of Mexico. You can get the book either in print or on Amazon.
Kindle.
On Amazon, right? So
Yes.
thank you very much. Are you going to come back and host one day?
One day. One day. I mean, I've got what, 75 books out, something like that by now. So when I start really slowing down, I'll have more time on my
But
hands.
you're not writing at the pace you were earlier in your writing career. You've slowed down on that, haven't you?
No, if you're going to turn out 10 good quality novels, and it's arguable how good, but okay, per year, you're going to be spending about 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, year round to maintain that production. So
But
I
you're
did that,
not
I
doing
want to
that
say
anymore.
no, I did that for 7 or 8 years.
Right. That's what I
And
thought.
it's just, do you want to work to live or live to work?
Well, that's true. That's true. How about neither? How about just live and never mind the working? You just got to enjoy your life, right?
I blame my parents for not being born rich, and I've never forgiven them.
Well, I don't know if everybody, and I guess people must know that you are also a home designer and contractor. I have seen some of your work. It's exceptional. It's beautiful. So multi-talented, Russell Blake. Russell, you and I will talk again
Well,
soon.
thank you.
Thank you for being with
I
me.
hope so.
Yeah, we will. And
Thank you for having me. It's always a
I'm
pleasure.
always happy to see you. And I hope I'll see you next year in Colima. Thank you,
I
everybody.
hope you come down.
I will. I will. If I leave out of Miami, it's actually a good deal for me. So I
I'll
will, and
hold
we'll
you to
talk
that.
about it. Okay. Thank you,
Perfect.
everybody, for being with me. Thank you, Russell Blake, and happy holidays to everybody. We'll see you later.
Ho, ho,
Bye bye.
ho.